Welcome friends, thank you again for tuning in. In this video tutorial, I'm going to be exploring the empty elements in HTML5. We have so many empty elements, but in this video tutorial, I'm going to touch on the 6. I'm going to talk about the meta element, I'm going to talk about the link element, I'm going to talk about the image element, I'm going to talk about the break, I'm going to talk about the horizontal rule, I'm going to also talk about the input element. These are the empty elements that we have in HTML5. I'm going to start by demonstrating how to type code. For example, an example of a meta tag. As I've said in the previous videos, that the meta tag or the meta element goes in the head section of our web page. I've actually written my title over there, and I'm going to just include my meta element to just show the encoding of this particular file. So this is the tag for the meta element. As I've said, that the empty elements they have no closing tag. They are just self-closing tag, or they are empty elements, because you don't have two tags, the opening tag and the closing tag, then you have content in between. No, you just write a single tag, and everything that you write it inside that particular opening or start tag. So the meta element is written like this. The meta element, and then we have chased. I just want to demonstrate the encoding for the site. So it uses UTF-8. This is our meta element. As you can notice that it takes an attribute. A meta element always takes an attribute and a value. It takes an attribute and a value. You should also notice that it has got this / to show that it is a self-closing tag. So it's a tag, then you close it just here. This is all about the meta elements. We can include the description. We can include another element to include the description of your web page or of your website. You can also include the meta element to include to make your website more responsive, or your web page more responsive, so that it can be used across various devices without breaking or without hiding some other content. So you can use a meta tag to make your page more responsive. We are going to delve into that in the future videos as we proceed with our tutorials. But this is just the basics. I'm just making an introduction to the meta element. I'm just going to want you to notice I have typed this tag here in the head section, just to stress the point that whatever we type in the head section is not going to be displayed here on the browser view window. So if you will reload our browser, there is no change that you are going to notice, but some meta information has been included in our page. So that is why we use the meta tags to include additional or meta information or metadata about our web page. So now we have included that to say that the encoding for this web page is UTF-8 using the meta tag. So that is basically the meta element. The next empty element that I'm going to refer to is the link element. It is also written here in the head section, and it is also a self-closing tag. So the link, I'm just going to link, we use the link usually to link to our external CSS files. I do have a folder here with an external CSS file. So this is the folder that I want to link to. As you can notice, I'm just going to write some code into this CSS file. Oh, it seems like it wasn't properly saved. Okay, so I'm just going to save the file, so that I save it as .css before I proceed. This is the file. It's a CSS file. It is supposed to have .css, not .html. Do not make that mistake. This is a style sheet, so it's going to be a .css file, not a .html file. A .html file is simply used to write the structure, and then this one is used for styling the web page. For example, if you want to change the color of some text, or the background color, or the size of the images, or the size of some elements, you write your code in the CSS file, which is like this one. So I'm just going to link to this file here, so that when I make changes, or when I type something into this file, it's going to make changes to this file, and then we're going to see the changes here on the browser window. So this is what is going to happen. So I'm going to be linking to this particular styles file. So I'm going to use the self-closing or an empty element called the link. So the link takes a few attributes. I'm just going to type the attributes. So now it's a type. Takes the attribute type, text or CSS, relationship with Israel, style sheet, and then href. Now we are going to be linking to the file. This one will take as value the URL for our, so since the HTML file, this HTML file is in the same folder with this CSS file, so we are simply going to include the name of the CSS file. However, if maybe this one could be on its own folder, we are going to include the full path, the full URL here for it to be rendered correctly. So now I have linked my CSS file, which is an external file. This is styles, so make sure that you type it correctly, not style. So you you spell it correctly when you are linking it, in order for it to work. So I'm just going to let me just reload the page. You're going to see that they are not changed. I just want to change the color of my headings here using my CSS, because I've linked it here, so it's going to be able to change the color. So I'm just going to tag it. This is a selector. We are going to learn about it in the future videos. This is a selector, so I'm just going to say color, and then make them red. Simple. That's a simple color. So this is the syntax for writing our CSS code. For all the code, you're going to be writing it in this syntax. You have a selector, then you have the curly brace, opening curly brace, then you have a property, then you have a value. So this is the element that you want to change. You can use the tag itself like this, or you can use an ID, or you can use a class to change these elements. And then you have the property that you want to apply to this particular element, and then you have the value of that particular property. So this is how you write CSS. So I have written something here. Let me just reload and see if there are any changes that are going to take place. If you can notice that this one, it has changed all H1 elements, all H1 tags to red, because I selected H1. If I change here and select H2, for example, it's going to change the H2 element to what? To this color, because it's the one that I'm selecting. So I linked this file to this HTML file using the link empty element. This is the syntax for linking the link. So for example, I remove this link, if I remove this link and then reload my browser, I will remove the link, right, and then reload the browser, go together. Now you will notice that although I have code to change the H2 element here on my CSS, but this code is not actually being seen by this HTML file, because there is no link to this external CSS. So that is the purpose of a link element. That is the purpose of the link empty element. So now it can change the color of our document. And then the next empty element that I'm going to use is the BR, that is the break. If you want to make a break, maybe to go to the next line, for example, I want this HTML stands for hypertext markup language to go to the next line. As you can see here, it is in the same line with the first paragraph, with the first line, with the first sentence. It is in the same line. So if I want it to go to its own line, I'm just going to simply add a break element here, and then reload. You will notice that it's going to go to the next line. You can add as many BR elements as you want, depending on the space that you on the amount of space that you're going to need in between elements. If I add 3, you will notice that it's going to add more. However, let me just point out something here. If these white spaces are not interpreted by the browser is not going to see them. No matter how many spaces, as you can see, I've actually pressed enter several times, but there is not going to be a change in the way my text is rendered on the browser. Why? Because these empty spaces don't mean anything to the browser. Okay, so I just wanted to pass that one. And then you can add your break. If you want to move to the next line, then you will notice that it moves to the next line. That is the BR element. And then the next empty element that we are going to be talking about now is the horizontal rule element. It's the horizontal rule element. It is simple for underlining or for drawing a horizontal line wherever you want to draw. For example, I want to draw a horizontal line here. I'm simply going to type my HR tag like this. Then it's going to draw a line for me, a horizontal line for me after the paragraphs. That is another empty element. The other empty element that I'm going to be looking at, it also takes quite a number of attributes. You can use so many attributes on it. Then we have got the Img element. The image. If you want to insert an image into your web page, you are going to use the Img element. It takes the source attribute src equals, and then you write the URL. I've got an image here in my assets folder. I have an image called img1. It's a PNG image. So I just want to insert this image in my web page here. So I'm going to use the Img empty element. So what I'm going to do now is I want this page to look inside the assets folder. In the assets folder, I want it to go and find the image with this name and an extension. Is it img or image? Yes, it's img. So I want it to go inside this folder. I want this file to go inside this folder and look for this image, which is img, and put it here at the end below paragraph, below the h6 element that we have typed there. So let's just see how this one goes. Now let's just load our browser. As you can see, our image has been inserted in our web page. For example, if you decide you want to change the size of this image, you can add another attribute. You can add the width of the image, and maybe say I want you to reduce it to 20%. 20%. Oops, sorry. I need double quotes. I want it to be 20% of its size. As you can see, it has reduced it, or I want it to in pixels, and say I want my image to be 50 pixels. These are in HTML, or I want it to be 100 px. Okay, just wanted. Or if you want to use the aims, you can use the aim. These are the measurement units in CSS or in HTML. This is the Img element. So it is an empty element because it only has one tag, and it is a self-closing tag. As you can see, we've got this / to show that this tag is just closed here. And then the last element, which is empty, is an input element. So an input element also take a few attributes. So you just type, it is usually used with forms. So, but now I'm going to just use it on its own. Equals text. If you want to add a text box, you can use it. Text. Then you can add other attributes like name, text box, ID, text box. Okay, anything you can add, the placeholder if you want. There are so many attributes that you can include in your input element. It is also a self-closing element. Here I forgot to just include one attribute. For example, if you want to add alternative text in the image, alt text, and then you can add the text and say that my image, so that if the image is not there, it's not appearing on the browser, the name, this text is going to be appearing in place of the image. So, and then this is the input element. Let's just load our browser and see how it is rendered on the browser. As you can see, I have got a text box here. I can type something inside this text box. So you use, why am I seeing a text box here? It is because that I said type text here. If I, for example, change this one and say button, it's going to give me a button there. As you can see, it has given me a button, but my button does not have a value. So I can actually add an attribute and say the value is equal to click me. And then this button is going to have a value that says click me. It doesn't do anything because it's just a button. And then this is the input element. This is the input element. It is also a self-closing element. You can experiment with this and do whatever you want with it.